Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today this is a bit of a delayed video. I'm just re-recording this intro because I unfortunately didn't manage to get away at the weekend to finish this video off. So I thought I would do it for a Wednesday night video. Now I actually don't mind that so much, although obviously I know there's some of you out there who were disappointed not to get a video on Sunday, so I apologise for that. But what I like about this subject is it's a bit of a Wednesday night subject. On Wednesday night, for those of you who don't know, traditionally we have a live stream during British summertime, and that's where we do some painting and chew the fat, shoot the shizzle, and it's a little bit more laid back than the more formal Sunday night videos. And that's very much what this video is going to be about. What I wanted to go through today is the updated pack for Under Eagles to Glory 2, and just look at some of the changes that we made after the first event and how they will inform the second event. So the first thing to say is, what is Under Eagles to Glory 2? It is a Napoleonic weekender on the 1st and 2nd of March 2025, and the idea is it's a boards and swords in Derby. And it's not a tournament, it's just a way of getting together and playing multiple games with different opponents across the weekend. As happened last year, or this current year, it will be 4 games, 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday, nothing too hardcore, although we have changed one of the scenarios because I felt that the original one didn't work quite as well as I would have liked it to have done. So the first thing that we look at is if we go to page, where are we? Page 2, which is a good place to start. Page 1, I guess, if we're not including the cover, then we can see that on the second point, the table sizes have changed. Now, Ian, who is one of the owners of Boards and Swords, very kindly put aside a 6-foot table next to each of the tables that we were playing on. So effectively you would have 18 feet of table. You'd have 2 gaming tables on there with a 6-foot table in the middle. So that would allow us a 6-foot by 4-foot table. Now that was really nice. It was good to have things like your books and your dice and your drinks and things like that on that separate area. Reserves as well. But I don't think we needed the full 6 feet or 3 feet per table on there. So what we've been able to do is we've extended the table widths, so now the table is going to be 8 feet by 4 feet. Now, we're still going to keep the reduced ranges, so all the ranges distances are going to be reduced by 1/3, but just with that slightly wider table, it means that we can have a bit more of that outflanking action going on, and a little less of a bottleneck that we saw before. And the bottleneck comes around because I have changed the rules for how units can interpenetrate. They haven't changed too much since the first event on the Eagles to Glory 1 this year, but there is a small but quite significant change, which we'll talk about when we get to it. You can also see that we have kept the points levels the same at 600 points. I think that was large enough for the points were enough for quite a varied army, so you could get some cool stuff in there, but not too big that it over-cluttered the table. And with the extra wide width on the table, then I think our table should be even less cluttered than they were at the first event. And I think that worked pretty well as it was. Now, I'm not just going to go through the pack page by page, because that would be pretty boring. It'd be like the old death by PowerPoint presentations that we all remember from the 90s and early 2000s. What I will say is, if you look through the pack yourself, you'll see sentences and various parts in red. Those are new to this pack. They're either changes from the first pack, or they're brand new rules or ideas, or brand new altogether. So, for instance, if you go on to page 9, you'll see in red that I have got the updated sizes of the tables. Now, before we get to page 9, I have skipped over a rather important page, and that is page, I believe it's page 6, which has got the schedule for the event on. Now, some people they said it was a good idea to put a schedule in the pack. I thought I had in the first one, but I hadn't. This is all in, so we've got Friday the 28th of February from 7 p.m, drinks at the Smithfield pub. This is optional, of course. You don't have to come to this. I mean, you don't have to come to any of it. But it's just a way to sort of meet everyone, chill out, kick back a little bit, have a nice pork pie. Then Saturday, Sunday, we've got the games. Again, Saturday night, there is an optional dinner. So that's all good to go. That's all in the pack. You can read that for yourself. So the big thing, the big changes really are the sizes of the tables and the missions. Now, we were very, very lucky in the last event that we ran that we had some fantastic support from Warlord Games, some prize support. And we're going to do the same this time here, hopefully with Warlord Games, but if not, then we'll have some other things that we can do. And each scenario is going to have a spot prize. So that is, there's only one available, and the first time that thing happens to someone, then give us a shout, and you will win the spot prize. So you can see for mission number 1, secure the road. So that's not changed since the last events that we had. The spot prize for this one is the first player to lose one of their colours. Give us a shout and you'll win a spot prize. Most of these are designed to maybe levy a feels bad moment rather than just pile on to a feels good moment. So, or leaven a feels bad moment, I should say, not levy. That's I've got my Prussian hat on, obviously. So for mission number 1, the first player to lose a colour, they can win a prize. For the second mission, Breakthrough Assault, now this has changed quite significantly in the regards to the attacker gets a preparatory bombardment. So they get to have a 2-dice shot at every unit on the table, every enemy unit on the table. Their usual modifiers apply, so it'll be -1 to hit, but you do get bonuses if the enemy is deployed in square for some reason. So that will work. And any casualties or shakens or anything like that, they will count towards the first turn. And the spot prize on this second game is the first player to roll a blunder. They can shout up for a spot prize. Going on to number 3, the spot prize is, so this is a bit of an odd one. I don't know why it's not in red on this one. Apologies for that. I shall change that in the before we get to the very final version of this. The spot prize is the first player to have a brigade turn up on its compulsory turn. So on this one, your troops will arrive in dribs and drabs on the table, and you won't necessarily get all the units on when you want them, but they will turn up automatically before the end of the game. So if you have no one that comes on turn 1, you will at least get them on by turn 3. So the first players that rattle through those, so maybe if both sides don't get their troops on the table, then you will shout up and you'll get your spot prize for that one. And then the final one, this is the biggest change in the missions. This is taken from a Warhammer Fantasy scenario. This has no spot prize at the moment, but don't worry, there is one. It's just it's a surprise, this one. And for this one, you don't really get to decide where your troops deploy. The idea is that they've, getting up bleary-eyed from their tents, ready to fight. Maybe it's been snowing or raining or foggy or something like that, and the troops can't necessarily guarantee that they're in the positions that they want to be. I'm thinking for this one, one of the big inspirations was Eylau, where the French were told to, go and march over there. So off they went. A snow flurry came down upon them. So they kind of got lost, got turned around a little bit, and then when the snow flurry lifted, they were right in front of the Russian Grand Battery. So not where you would want to be. So that is the inspiration behind that one, and that's why it also takes a little bit of control away from the players, which I always think is interesting to see how players can deal with that. So those are the 4 missions. As I say, that's one of the biggest changes. The second biggest change, that is second in in chronological order rather than importance, is the FAQ and the house rules. Now, we have made a couple. You can see there's quite a big one in red. So we're looking at Appendix B. And this one is, can units voluntarily move through friendly units? As a general rule, no. However, there are some exceptions. And you can see there, one of the things that we were finding without being able to move through your own units is that units that were being pushed back were creating all sorts of horrendousness. So I wanted to put it in there that units can interpenetrate, but I did want to limit it. Now, I wanted to limit it for two reasons. The first one is I just hate how unrealistic it is that columns of attack in particular, or things like Prussian Zugs or Austrian battalion masses, are just wandering through each other as if they're in walking on a parade ground. I don't like that, so that's why it's out. And the second thing is because the tables are quite small, certainly in width. Certainly in depth, so that it doesn't take you long to get in the enemy's face. It is an artificial way of slowing down the game a little bit, making those maneuvers a little bit more impactful, and just means that maybe instead of being in the enemy's face on turn 2, it takes you till turn 3, and it doesn't sound like it's going to be much difference, but it absolutely can be. And that reminds me as well, another change we've made is we've added an extra 2 turns, so it'll either be 8, 9, or 10 turns per game instead of 6, 7, or 8. And that was because we found in the first event that some of the battles were just really, really ramping up. They were really getting exciting, and then that was the end of the game. And that's always a bit of a letdown for everyone. So by adding a few extra turns, it just means that that hopefully we can get that concluded, and the game can finish in a timely manner. Unfortunately, there are restrictions for how long games can go on. You've got time, and you've also got... so I was playing in the Lord of the Rings event last weekend, as I say, and in my second game, I basically couldn't win, and all we were waiting for was my opponent to get me down to 25%, and there was no way I could win anymore because he'd had more VPs than were still available to be collected. So it was just a question of, well, we can carry on playing until someone rolls a 1 or a 2, or we can just end it here. I said to him, well, let's play on. And then after the first time, I was like, actually, this is just waste everyone's time. So we knocked it on the head and we went to the pub instead. It was lunchtime. So, yeah, I don't want the games to go on where someone has lost all chance of winning and they're just there for the sake of being there. We don't want that. So that's why there is a hard turn limit of an absolute maximum of 10 turns. So I'll let you look through that in your own time. The instances that you can interpenetrate units. There's another one that I've added as well. Now, this is a huge rule change, very different from what's already in the supplements, although I think it probably should be in the supplements. I'm surprised it's not. And that is, can cavalry contact squares? Now, normally what happens is you charge an infantry regiment. In the Napoleonic period, 99.9% of the units must form square as their special rule. So they must form square. And if they do, then the cavalry stop 3 inches away, and then they carry on. Now, what I've put here is that they can, however, in certain circumstances, the cavalry can contact them. And that is if the enemy square is shaken or disordered. Now, I've said here that you must order the cavalry to charge. It can't be done on an initiative move. And all the usual combat modifiers apply as normal for fighting a square, and the unit doesn't become automatically disordered, which is something that I've also added to the rules, that if infantry are charged by cavalry, they automatically become disordered. Now, the reason that I wanted to put this in is because there were instances in the Napoleonic Wars where squares were broken by cavalry. Garcia Hernandez is perhaps the most famous, which is where the KGL broke 2 French squares, one after the other. Now, the reason they broke the first one is it was very hastily formed. It was what we would recognize in the rules as being a disordered square. The KGL, one of the horses was shot. The horse sort of slewed sideways and took out 3 or 4, took out the front of the square 3 or 4 men wide. Now, this may have happened for a second, 2 seconds, before the French could recover, fill that hole. Unfortunately for the French, that 1 or 2 or 3 seconds were all the KGL needed. They poured into that gap inside the square, and then they gutted it from the inside out. Now, you are a Frenchman on a dusty Spanish plain. In front of you are some angry English horsemen. Behind you are some even angrier German horsemen. And just across from you is a fellow French square. What you can do, you are going to run like your life depends on it, because it kind of does, towards that French square. So the disordered square had been taken apart. The survivors ran to the other square. Not only did that disorder them, but you could also say it shook them as well. Not in the way that Black Powder does. Obviously, shaking is from casualties. But seeing the survivors of this first square must have been pretty harrowing for the guys in the second one, because that's going to happen to us. The French survivors rapidly fought their way into the centre of the square. Unfortunately, the gaps they made in the solid wall meant that the KGL could get in there as well, and the second square didn't fare any better than the first one did. So, although that was a very rare occurrence, it could happen, and it was such a magnificent thing to happen, if you're in the KGL, that we can still talk about it today. So, I wanted there to be the opportunity, the chance, that could happen in your games. Now, it's a very slim chance, but it is there. It's certainly not something that I would recommend you do on the reg, but if you feel that the enemy is shaken, you've got a heavy unit of cuirassiers or maybe guard cavalry, and you feel that it's worth the risk to clear out this battalion, and then there's a gap that your infantry can punch through or something like that, then it may well be worth doing. And with this change to the rules, you can do it. But as I say, it's not something that you should probably look at doing straight away. But, there you are. That's the option out there for you. There's a couple more clarifications in the FAQ. Now, there is one that I wanted to... there's two, actually, that I wanted to flag up. The first one is, what happens if the British are using their Gallop at Anything special rule override off the board? Can they return? I've said yes, they can, as long as they are not shaken. If they are shaken when they do their pursue move, then that's it. They're off the battle for the rest of the game. Otherwise, you can order them back on as normal, and it'll just be an order. It will be at -1, and they cannot be included in brigade orders. They also can't charge the turn they come back on. So those are some caveats to that. It's probably not going to happen. It did happen in the first event, but it only happened once or twice. So there's just some there. If you are British charging towards the edge of the table, just be careful you don't fall off the edge of the world. Now, the other one that I wanted to mention comes under the minor nations. Now, this one needs a little bit of explaining, because, as some of you may know, Piano Miniatures is doing another Kickstarter, a fantastic figure manufacturer, and they do a really nice range for the Württembergers. Now, they do figures for Württemberger Guard, including Guard Cavalry and Guard Infantry, but there are no rules for these troops. There are, however, rules for Saxon Guard Cavalry, and there is also, there's rules for Saxon Grenadier Infantry as well. So what I'm saying is, in this case, that you can use the rules for Saxony for Württembergers. This is also something I want to say as well. If you are someone who likes to do your own imagination, as in a nation that you have imagined, then use the Confederation of the Rhine, and you can mix and match their things. You may say, well, my imagination has the same army as the British. Well, in that case, just use the British. That's fine. But if you wanted to do one that's like a Central European power, then I would recommend using the Confederation of the Rhine list from the Clash of Eagles book. I think it's around about page 90, something like that. That's the one that I would use. So that's it, really. This has been, it's effectively an 18 or 19 minute video of just advertising Under Eagles of Glory, really. However, I hope it's been a bit more than that. If you haven't seen this rules pack before, then I'm going to post a link to it down below. I've got important information about another link I'm going to post in the description as well. I'll come back to that in a second. But yeah, if you've not seen this pack before, it is available on Facebook. You can also ask me for it. Drop me an email on the Napoleonic Wargamer at gmail.com. If you are going to email me, though, please leave a comment here so I know to look for your email. One of the things that happens on my email address for the channel is every time something happens to the channel, so every time I get a like or a new subscriber or a comment or a reply to a comment or an edit to a comment or any of these things, then I get an email. So I absolutely love your likes and replies and all that stuff. So thank you so much for all of those. I'm certainly not complaining about that, but what I'm just going to say is I get a lot of emails from YouTube every day, and I don't really get a chance to go through them all. I can't just auto delete them because there are some important ones in there as well. So I can't go through all the emails and see if people have emailed me. So please let me know in the comments here that you've sent me an email, and I'll keep an eye out for it, basically. Now, I said that I'm going to link something else in the comments down below. This is going to be in the files section of the same Facebook page. I'm also looking at setting up a Dropbox. I'm not entirely sure how that works, but we'll find a way, I'm sure. And the idea of that is, so the Knuckle Duster miniatures have recently been sold or purchased by another company, and their excellent black powder supplement for the War of 1812 is no longer available. Luckily, your boy Tim downloaded it, and I've re-uploaded it to that Facebook page. If you are Knuckle Duster Miniatures, or you are the new owners of Knuckle Duster Miniatures, or you are the people who made that supplement, if that is something that you no longer want there to be, please, again, email me or let me know in the comments here, and I will not be happy to take it down because I think there's a lot of excellent work in there, but I would obviously respect your wishes and take it down. The final thing I want to talk about is I will be doing a similar video on this in the summer of next year because we are running an epic-sized event as well. This is going to be in September. It's going to be called To the Sound of the Guns. It's going to be different, very different to how we run this. The basic mechanics are going to be similar, but this is going to be a 100 days team event. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to spill the beans more on that probably after Under Eagles to Glory 2. So this is the one I want to focus on now. Just be advised, keep your diaries free around about September, October next year, because it's going to be epic fun. For I'm trying to think of a pun there. I can't really think of any. It's going to be epically fun times to do. Now, I should say as well that I'm going to be doing this Sunday a review of the Warlord Epic French, because I've just ordered a bunch of them. And the reason I have ordered a bunch of them is because they have a sale on at the moment. The sprues are half price. Definitely check that out if you get opportunity. That is all. I wanted to keep this video to around about 20 minutes, so I've gone slightly over with the community announcement. Once again, apologies that it wasn't out on Sunday, this video, that it's come out today. But I hope that, as I say, it's a bit more of a Wednesday night topic. The nights are now really drawing in. The troops have gone into winter cantonments, and I hope that your preparations for the next campaign season are well underway. Let me know in the comments down below what you're working on. If not for Under Eagles to Glory, what are you just working on in general? Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.